The Honest Garage Podcast, where real shop owners tell real shop stories.
Today on the Honest Garage Podcast, we're talking with a shop owner who seems to understand that in a crowded market, fixing cars is only half the job. The other half is building a business people actually want to come back to. Our guest today is Greg Miller, owner of Figs Auto Repair in Charlotte, North Carolina. Figs Auto Repair operates out of Freedom Drive in Charlotte as a full-service general repair shop, handling everything from oil changes and brakes to diagnostics, electrical work, engine repair, tires, and transmissions. What stands out is that Figs prides itself as the standard of auto repair in the area. Figs Auto Repair boasts quick service, strong communication, warranty confidence, and a customer experience built to reduce friction. With hundreds of reviews pointing to friendliness, professionalism, and outstanding service that leave customers feeling taken care of through the process, not just sold a repair. In this episode, we're going to dig into how Greg thinks about building loyalty in a market where people have a lot of choices, what actually turns one-time callers into repeat clients, and what independent owners should focus on if they had to build from zero in a new town, and how customer service, convenience, and operational discipline come together to make a shop sustainable. Greg, welcome to the Honest Garage Podcast. How you doing today, sir?
I'm great, David. Thank you.
That's good, man. Glad to hear it. Appreciate you taking the time to talk today.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're going to start out with a question we like to ask everybody that's on the show, because I think it's hard to be in this industry and not have some interest in automobiles. What's the one car that you really want to drive or that's really meant a lot for you?
Sure. This weekend, it was nice and warm here in Charlotte. So it was the perfect weekend for my little toy project. We've got a 97 Jeep TJ, no top, no doors, but even better, we took the 4-cylinder out and put a V8 in it with a 5-speed manual transmission. That's about the perfect car for me right now. Anytime you can have sunshine and the rumble of V8 and 4-wheel drive vehicle, that's pretty much the ultimate right now.
Do you get it out on the trails or do you drive it around town mostly?
There's not a lot of trails around here, so it's mostly just around town, but it works fine for throwing the mountain bike on the back and then going to the trail so you can ride.
There you go. Perfect. You got to get that thing out to Colorado where we're at. That way you can come take it on some trails.
I would love to. Yeah, that would be a nice trip for sure.
Yeah. Let's start at the beginning. I know for people who don't know the story behind Figs Auto Repair, or who didn't get the pleasure of talking to you on our prep call, how did you get into the industry? What led to the opening and taking over of the shop in Charlotte? What did those early days look like?
Sure. So it kind of started back all the way back to childhood. My father wasn't in the business, but he taught me how to fix just about everything around the house. I remember many days on the driveway with him, working on a car, working on an appliance or whatever it was, he would figure out a way to fix it. So he kind of started me early on that path. Then in high school, I started with the full service gas station, worked my way up to doing lube services, brake services, just kind of getting started. I went to the University of Florida and took a job as a mechanic there. So I worked my way through school, turning wrenches, loved it, had a blast working for that shop, but I didn't really think it would be the best career path at the time. So I went off, I got a finance degree, I went off and worked for a bank, I ended up starting an IT company. I did that for many years, and when I finally had the opportunity to get out of that, I kind of felt like I wanted to get back to doing something that I enjoyed doing. So that's when I started looking around. I found this shop that was for sale, spent a lot of time working with the previous owner because it had been 20 years since I've been in the business. So I had to reacquaint myself a bit. But it turned out to be a great opportunity because it's in an incredible location here in Charlotte. Lots of new customers coming through here, lots of existing customers in this area. And Charlotte's just a growing population anyway, so there's just tons of opportunities around here.
Yeah, that's great. And I know Charlotte's not exactly short on auto repair shops. It seems like there's a ton of them around your area.
Absolutely.
When you think about your shop, what is it that you believe separates your shop from others?
Yeah, so I think a lot of that is we have really good people on the front counter that are willing to listen to what our customers' needs, and we do the best we can to give them a solution that fits their budget. They may not be able to fix everything, but we can help them prioritize what needs to be done most. We can talk to them about preventative maintenance and how that can save them money in the long run. But just working with the customer to find the right solution for each individual customer. Everybody's not going to be the same.
Yeah. On your front desk, are you hiring app technicians or customer service reps? What's your thought up there?
We've tried a little bit of everything, and I think depending on the individual, either way could work. Somebody's got the technical background or somebody who doesn't. And right now we've got one of each. I've got one guy that has no technical background, but he's picked it up. And then another guy that was a previous technician that is wonderful talking to customers on an everyday basis. So I think it depends on each person, because there's plenty of technicians that can't talk to customers and plenty of other people that can't understand the ins and outs of working on these cars. So it's a unique fit for sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there's tons of cross-training opportunities between the two of them up front too.
Absolutely. Yeah, my guys are really good about they're in the back helping the technicians whenever they can. And the technicians are also really good about showing customers or showing the advisors what needs to be shown for sure.
Yeah, and so you talked about like that customer service up front being a real differentiator on that service counter for you. One thing I really want to get your take on is how do you take that one-time customer into a long-time regular for you? And
Sure.
talk about that role that the service advisors play. And go ahead.
Absolutely. So one of the parts of our process, which is probably not unique to us, but we feel like it's very important to do a full inspection on every vehicle that we get into the shop. So we want to know if there's warning lights on, how the tires are wearing, what the brakes look like. Even if the customer's just here for an oil change, we do this as a service to the customer. That way they can have a better idea of where their car is at the current time and what kind of future investments may be required. And I think it's really important, and our advisors on the front counter are really good at working with the customer. We're not trying to fear sell these services to customers. We're trying to help them figure out how to plan for upcoming expenses. So if we know their brakes are getting low, we can help them plan that out in the next 6 months or a year or whatever it's going to take. Same way with tires, timing belts. There's a lot of little, maybe not so little expenses, but if they can plan for them, it can be a lot easier for a customer instead of just walking in and suddenly getting hit with a $3,000 bill.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of education that happens over the phone and during the checkout process for that first visit.
For sure. So the guys when we do it right, they spend a lot of time with the customer between the phone calls, between checking the customer and keeping them updated during the whole process while the car's here. And then, like you said, at the checkout time, those are all different interactions that are very important to what we're doing.
Yeah, and I think that those interactions are probably, we talked on the prep call about you getting people coming back for the second, third, fourth, and really actually following through on those maintenance plans. I know that we have a lot of listeners out there, shop owners, that you provide the estimate after the DVI the first time, and then you never hear from the customer again. They ghost you. What is it that you think you're doing that's actually bringing them back in the shop? Do you have a follow-up process in place, or how do you go about that?
Absolutely. And it's definitely not foolproof. That's something we're always working on, trying to refine. But I think at the lowest level, it's establishing the relationship with the customer when the car's in the shop. We do everything we can to build trust with the customer, make sure they understand that we're going to do everything we can to make their visit as easy as possible. So that's the first step, is we've got to build that trust before we go any further. And then after that, we do have multiple automated follow-up systems where they're going to get text messages and emails checking in on the service we've already done, reminders about upcoming services that are coming up. And then the front desk guys also pick up the phone and call them, usually about, I think our process right now is about 4 weeks later, they're going to pick up the phone and call the customer just to check in. But they're not going to do a high-pressured sales call. They're going to call, make sure everything we've done is okay, and then see if there's anything else we can do to help them. And if there is outstanding work, we'll remind them about that and see if that's something they want to get scheduled.
That's great. I think that follow-up process and doing it in a way that shows that you care about the customer first instead of just going straight for the sale makes a difference in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know that a lot of owners are focused really on the short-term profitability, trying to get the highest average repair order possible and trying to get as much sold at that first visit as possible. Talk to me about how you balance trying to get everything sold and be profitable with how you balance the customer service and the education and the planning side of the business.
Sure, that's definitely a challenge we see. Usually, especially a first time customer, we want to make sure we're leading with the ability just to build trust with the customer. We're not looking at dollar signs when a new customer comes in. We're looking to build that reputation with them, make sure they understand we're here to help them. If they've got a current need, we'll be glad to work with them on that. It may just be an oil change or a tire patch, but we'll start as small as we need to start with a new customer. And then, like we talked about, it's really about just setting the plan in place and helping them move forward for if there are going to be additional costs down the road, showing them that we can take care of everything they're going to need with that car.
Yeah. And where do you think that the biggest disconnect is for a lot of shop owners when they're trying to make this balance? What's a common error that you hear about from your customers that other shops make that you're kind of grateful they do because that means you get the chance to customer?
Yeah, I think it always boils down to communication. I think one of the things that we do pretty well is, especially with a new customer, but setting the stage about what our process looks like when we bring that new customer in, talking to them about the multi-point inspection we're going to do, talking to them about the maintenance services that we're going to look into for them, and let them know that we're going to give them a list, but we're not saying you have to do all this stuff. We just want to make sure you know what's out there, and we're going to make sure that we provide all that information to you. We don't want to pick and choose. We want to give you the whole picture, but then we can help you scale it down from there. So I think that's really, other shops go wrong by not kind of setting that expectation up in the front so that when a customer then gets $5,000 worth of quotes, they feel like that kind of came out of nowhere and probably scares them a little bit.
Yeah, as Paul, our producer, says all the time, unexpressed expectations are the root cause of all problems. It sounds, if you're educating the customer on the front end and they're prepared to see the list of things on their vehicle at the end, they don't get shocked and feel like they have to do everything on the list. And that sounds like a really big distinguishing factor that I think a lot of shops are probably missing.
For sure. Yeah.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you is, I know we have people listening who are starting and are newer at this, whether they're new in their career altogether or just new at being a shop owner. If you were starting from zero today, new town, what would you do in the first 30 days to get customers and build your reputation?
Sure. I think number one is you got to get cars in the shop, right? So depending on your location, if you've got lots of drive-by traffic, getting good signage out front. If you don't, you really need to go heavy on some form of marketing, whether it's Google Ads, local services, direct mail. There's a lot of different options. But I think really, if I were to go back and think about what the very first step should be, I would say it's engaging with some mentor or coaching company that kind of help you walk through the process. That is one of the things that really attracted me to this industry back when I made the transition to auto repair. Is auto repair has been around for a while, and there's lots of people that know how to do it and know how to do it well. And there's a wealth of knowledge out there of people that are willing to share that with you. And it's so nice in this industry to be able to know exactly what your labor costs should be, your marketing costs should be, based on what a lot of really well-performing shops are doing. So there's not a lot of surprises there. There's playbooks that are available if you're willing to invest in a coaching company or building relationships where people will share that with you.
Yeah. Well, I know you kind of mentioned that you came out of that finance background. Talk to me a little bit about how your background in finance and your time away from the industry helped shape the way that you came back into it and what you were looking for in a coaching partner?
Yeah, the finance background goes pretty far back. It's been a while since really that was in play, but I can definitely see just having business sense in auto repair. I know there's I've talked to auto repair shops, and there's a lot of guys that work their way up from tire tech to a mechanic to buying out a shop and maybe didn't get to experience some of those business side of things. And I know they learn them. I've talked to plenty of people who do a great job and they've learned them. But I feel like that is something that I was able to bring to the table because I had learned that in school working for a bank. But just knowing that there are numbers that you've got to hit, you've got to be able to know what your daily, weekly, monthly KPIs are. And if you're not hitting those, what adjustments need to be made. And being able to do that, understand cash flow, that's a huge struggle. Is how are we going to pay these bills? When's the money coming in? At the end of the day, it's a business like any other business. And if you've got that background, you can leverage it. And if you don't, you can learn it. But there's definitely a lot of important things there.
Yeah, and I think you touched on something that my dad always told me growing up. Either you're gonna pay for your education somewhere, whether it's in dollars or it's in lost opportunity cost and revenue. Everybody pays for experience.
Sure.
And it sounds like the coaching group or the opportunity with coaching groups in this industry helps shorten that time frame to actually being profitable and getting some of this figured out. What do you feel like is the most undervalued or the thing that most people don't realize with a coaching group before they sign up?
That's a good question. I tried a few different coaching groups before I found the one that I'm in currently and have stuck with because it's been a great asset to my business. And I think there's different companies that work with different shops better than others. So it's not one size fits all, I'm sure. But I continue to leverage knowledge from just other shop owners. So the coaching company provides all kinds of content and great metrics, great KPIs to monitor, but the relationships you build with other shop owners they're all over the country, and being able to have them, sometimes they're referred to as like a virtual board of directors. So when you've got a struggle, instead of trying to figure it on your own, you've got a bunch of other guys that have similar backgrounds and similar experiences that can help you figure it out. And odds are one of them has been through the exact same scenario at some point.
Yeah.
So, you don't need to recreate the answer because somebody's probably already figured it out.
Yeah, and having that network to rely on and lean into is incredibly helpful. I think in any industry, but especially when there's so much to learn in the auto repair industry.
Absolutely. Yeah.
One of the things you touched on there was KPIs. And I think there's a lot of people who think that they know what their numbers should be or who think that they're tracking the right numbers. I'm curious, what are the KPIs that you're finding are most valuable for you to track? And then maybe what's the sleeper KPI that nobody's really paying attention to, but you're finding to be an indicator for you?
Sure. There's so many that we track every day, but some of the big ones, no surprises there, but the car count is huge. How many cars are we getting through the shop every day?
Yeah.
One of the newer ones that we've been using over the last couple of years is gross profit dollars per hour, which really reframes the profitability of doing work. It used to be we always tried to use gross profit margin, but that doesn't take the value of time into the equation. So being able to use gross profit dollars per hour helps us understand why changing a tire is not a unprofitable thing to do. So that's been a relearn over the last few years here to see that. But the one metric, you asked for a sleeper metric, the one that I've been using a lot lately is watching. So we call it speed of service, how long it's taken to get cars in and out of the shop. And that's something that can kind of highlight all kinds of problems in the shop, whether it's technician problems or front office problems. But when we see that speed of service number growing, how long it's taken these cars to get out of here, that has been a big indicator that something's not quite working correctly.
So on that speed of service number, when does the clock start in the customer journey and when does the clock stop? And are you measuring hours? Are you measuring days? Tell me a little bit more.
Sure. Hopefully it's hours, but sometimes it is days. What we're looking at is from the time the customer walks in with their keys. We want to be as efficient as we possibly can. We want their car on the lift before they even have a chance to sit down, especially their waiter. We want to make it happen fast for them. So in general, we want to see the cars in and out in one day. We don't want them here longer than one day. There's always going to be some bigger jobs that are taking longer than one day. So when we average everything out, right now our current goal is less than 36 hours. That's including the big jobs, little jobs, everything. But when we focus on our waiters or our smaller jobs that we're doing every day, those are more like 3 hours or less. We want to get them in and out as quick as we possibly can.
Yeah. So talk to me about how you kind of communicate your KPIs and that speed of service to your employees, and how does that speed of service metric that you just mentioned, how does that really impact your scheduling? How do you set your shop up so that you can get people turned around in 36 hours?
Sure. So as far as communication goes, what we try to do, which is it's an ongoing process, we try to have a morning huddle. I try to get everybody here before we open, so we technically open at 7:30, but the technicians get started at 8. So I'll try to get everybody here by 7:45. So we can do a huddle, talk about issues from the day before, talk about what's on the schedule for today and anything that's come up. And that's when we'll talk about specific KPIs. So it may be speed of service has gotten too long. It may be car counts going down. But whatever we need to talk about as a group, we can talk about then. And then the second part of your question, I'm sorry, remind me the second part of that question.
I'm curious how it affects scheduling. How do you
That's
staff
right.
your shop or organize your shop so that you can really get people out under that 36-hour window?
Sure. The big part is what usually affects that is going to be parts availability. That's gotten a lot better since back the COVID times. Everybody had so much trouble getting parts. It's gotten a lot better, but there's still many times when there's a part that's back ordered or dealer part that's got to come from Texas or whatever. So understanding where we are on parts is the biggest thing. So we can set the expectation, okay, we've got this transmission going in, but we're not going to have the transmission until next week. Let's move that thing to the back burner and let's get some other jobs in here. And part of that is kind of getting off tangent here, but one of the big lessons I've learned is one technician per bay. When I took over this shop 9 years ago, my thinking, and I think kind of general industry thinking, was you had 2 to 3 bays per technician so they could work on multiple jobs at one time. What that causes is cars to sit on those bays and nothing happens to them. They tear them down, waiting on parts, and they just stay tore down, wasting a lift for it. So we've moved more and more. We're still not 1-to-1 on this, but we're getting closer and closer to one technician per bay. And that means they have to be a little bit more careful when they tear down a car, because we have to be able to push it out if we can't get it fixed right then. We've gotten a whole lot more efficient by doing it that way, but it does require pushing cars in and out once in a while.
Yeah. And I think, you touched on it there, but the intentionality of the tech when they're in the bay to how far can I take this apart before I can't move it anymore?
Yeah.
I know that when I was working with my dad growing up, we used to have that problem a lot because we were a little 3-bay operation, 2 inside, 1 outside, and nobody wanted to work on the outside rack in the winter. So we were always really careful about making sure that we didn't take things apart too far if we couldn't get parts. So I love that. I love that's still a factor, even in 2026, 15 years later. I know you run a shop that really understands that repairs are only part of the equation when it comes to fixing cars. It's loyalty being built in the way that people are treated that is really helped you guys kind of level up in the area since you've taken over the shop. If you were going to talk to another owner who's a great tech and good at fixing cars, but they're struggling to get people back, what would you want them to understand about spending time on the shop versus time on the vehicle?
Sure. So I think what I've uncovered as an owner is I've worked each position in the shop, and I would prefer to work in the back and work on cars than be up front handling phones of customers. But I think each position has its own challenges for sure, and you've got to have the right person for each role. It's a unique skill set for sure. But as an owner, I think you need to understand that it's really the front of the house, your service advisors, that are driving the business. I generally see those guys as like the quarterback of the shop. If they're not doing their job, if they're not distributing the tickets, if they're not getting approvals on the work and getting the parts ordered, received, checked in, it's going to cause everything to come to a screeching halt. So I think it's easier, and I use that term loosely because it's not easy to find good technicians right now by any means. But maybe I should say it's more important to have a really good service advisor, because I've found that they can compensate for lack of production in the back way better than a master technician can compensate for lack of production in the front.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And that's something that a lot of people might not realize in their own business. I'm curious for you, Greg, where do you spend most of your time these days? Where do you feel like your time is most valuable spent as an owner in your business?
So I think that's two different questions: where I spend my time and where it's most valuable. Right now, I feel like I spend a lot of my time filling in. So when I've got somebody out sick or on vacation or whatever it is, so I'm filling in for either a technician or one of the front office guys right now. I think that's the curse of a small business, right? You've only got so many people, and when somebody's out, somebody's got to step in and do it. And we're not a corporation with lots of extra employees that can fill that gap. So that's me for right now. What I want to be able to do, and I do spend a lot of time just being able to manage the business. So that's monitoring the KPIs. I listen to almost every phone call that comes into the shop. I found that's extremely valuable to make sure that we're answering the calls correctly, encouraging the customers to bring their cars in, just having the right responses for what those customers are asking. And then coaching, spending time with the front office guys, talking about what's going wrong, what kind of adjustments we need to make. And the same thing in the back, working with technicians, it's always important to show that you're willing to work with them, help them when you can. I guess it's empathy is maybe one way to put it. Those guys have a very tough job, either working in a cold bay. We've got heat in the bay, but it's still not warm by any means. Or in the summer,
aren't exactly energy efficient.
Yeah, exactly. Or even in the summer when it's 95 degrees in the shop, it's a tough job. I think it's important to be able to work side by side with those guys and show them that we're a team, do everything I can to show that I want to make them successful.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a really good way to put it with the empathy. I think from the technician standpoint, I'm in all the forums and the groups on Facebook too, just like a lot of our listeners are. And a lot of times I hear there's a really big disconnect between the techs in the shop and the way that the owners are actually managing the business. And I think it's important to actually show the techs sometime that, hey, I'm willing to be out here working side by side with you so that you can build that rapport and keep team members around.
For sure. Absolutely.
So one of the things that we talk about a lot on the show with everybody that comes on is the phrase honest, right? We're the Honest Garage podcast. I run Honest Mechanic Marketing. When you hear that phrase, honest mechanic or honest garage, honest shop owner, what does that mean for you? What does that mean in how you run the business for Figs Auto Repair on the day-to-day?
Sure. And I think that's something that our industry gets a really bad rap. Getting into this business 9 years ago, that's one of the things I'd identified is that auto repair shops, their Google reviews were generally pretty poor. People they just don't like repair shops. We've got a bad reputation going in. So when we got started here at Figs, we realized that the bar is not very high to be a really good repair shop. And the most important thing is to be transparent with customers, own up to mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, and we do just as often as anybody else does. But when something breaks, when we're doing a repair, tell the customer, replace it. There's really not much else to it. We have found that telling customers they need certain repairs, but they've got time before they have to do the repair, being honest and straightforward with them, that's gained a lot of respect from our customers. They appreciate that. If they come in, they think they've got a terrible problem. This is what's actually going on. You don't really need to do anything now. You're going to need to do something in the future. That'll make them feel way better than trying to get them to spend whatever money you can get that day. But transparency overall it seems to be most important. We're going to tell them exactly what's going on. We take a lot of pictures. We try to document everything when we're working on vehicles. When our guys break parts, we let people know what's going on. We replace it for them. And at the end of the day, it's not as much about profit as about doing the job right. Profit's kind of a byproduct of doing it right. We have to have the profit so we can stay in business and be here tomorrow, but we're doing that job so we can help the customer. That's why we're doing it.
I think that's great. Yeah. You mentioned that profit is the byproduct of doing the job right. I think that is one of the most succinct ways we've heard that put on the show. I think that's excellent. If you don't have that somewhere in your shop, you probably ought to frame that.
Get a trademark now, huh?
There you go. So one of the things that I really love about getting to host this show and getting to have these conversations is the community and the connection that we're building between people who listen to the show and the guests on the show. I'm curious, before we wrap up, what's the best way for people to connect with you and stay up to date on what's going on with Figs Auto?
Oh, sure. We've got a website, figsauto.com. That's FIGSAUTO.com. To me directly, I've got an email address. It's Greg, GREG, at figsauto.com. Other than that, I try to avoid social media as much as possible. I don't really have any social media out there. I feel like there's probably more important things I can be doing with my time. So that email is probably the best way to reach out to me, and I welcome any emails.
That's great. If you're out there listening and you heard something on today's show and you really got value from it, I encourage you, reach out to Greg, dig deeper. This show is set up on a limited time span, so we can only cover so much, but you guys can take this offline and have as many conversations as you'd like and continue to grow this community that we're all in. I think that's probably, like I said, the coolest part about getting to host the show is seeing the auto repair industry come together to help each other solve problems. Again, I just want to say big thank you, Greg, for taking the time to be on the show today. I've enjoyed our conversation a lot. And if you're out there and you got value from today's conversation as well, aside from reaching out to Greg, share this episode, share the entire show with another shop owner, subscribe so that you don't miss future episodes, leave us a review. We're on Apple, Spotify, just about anywhere you can find podcasts. It helps other shop owners find the show. And obviously, for more marketing resources or tips and tricks, feel free to reach out to us, honestmechanicmarketing.com. We'd be happy to have that conversation with you. But one more big thank you to Greg, and thank you to everybody out there listening and letting us continue to do the thing we love to do. And as always, keep it honest in the garage.
And I hate that because I'm so passionate for our business. I have empathy and understanding that they're just in over their heads and trying to make a little bit of money. And the farther down that hole they get of screwing things up and trying to make money, screwing things up, and then they go through people because they don't know how to keep that. And then their people are crappy because they don't know how to keep them. And then they just had a terrible environment and they're frantically trying to keep themselves above water while they're losing everything. And then they get a case before the BBB, and it just shows where every step of the way they just handle it wrong. Honesty means you will represent what you did as what it was to anybody at any time, anywhere, right? If I'm honest, I'm not good looking. And I'll tell anybody anywhere, nobody's putting me on the cover of a magazine or a calendar or something like that. It's honest. It's true.